Somewhere on Ukraine's southern front, a soldier is standing alone in a sunny meadow, holding a shotgun, and his entire job is to listen to the sky. He's not hunting birds. He's guarding a 30-ton Swedish howitzer that his crew named Matilda, because when a machine keeps you alive every single day, you give her a name. United 24's reporters spent a day and a night embedded with this crew of the 43rd Artillery Brigade and their commander, a battle-hardened officer who goes by the call sign Jurist, and the strangest detail in the whole story is that shotgun. Russia has spent almost 3 years throwing its drone fleet and the largest artillery arsenal in Europe at this gun. The last line of defense she actually needs is one guy with a 12 gauge. Because by the time anything Russian gets close enough to matter, Matilda has already put her shells into a Russian gun line and vanished. One number explains why Moscow is losing its mind. Open source analysts tracking this war assess that after more than 2 years of relentless frontline use, the total count of Swedish Archers destroyed sits somewhere between 1 and 3 out of 26 delivered. For comparison, the Polish Crab, a very capable howitzer, has lost at least 43 to Russian drones according to Oryx. The American M777 gets picked apart on Telegram. So often it's practically become a Russian content genre. Russia's Lancet drone alone has racked up over 200 confirmed kills, and roughly 60% of everything it hits is artillery. So the Lancet is out there feasting on Western guns like it found an all-you-can-eat buffet, and then it reaches the Swedish table and the food keeps standing up and walking out. Killing artillery in this war is a math problem with a timer attached. A Russian radar or drone catches the muzzle flash, and then that position has to be confirmed before anyone can calculate a firing solution and send a Lancet screaming toward the coordinates. On a good Russian day, that whole chain takes a few minutes. The Archer needs 20 seconds to set up. It puts 3 shells in the air within another 20. After that, it wants just 20 more to pack itself up and leave at 70 kilometers an hour. So while some poor Russian lieutenant is still typing grid references with his gloves on, the thing he's targeting is 4 fields away doing the speed limit, looking for all the world like a Volvo truck that took a wrong turn. Which technically is exactly what it is. The Archer rides on a Volvo chassis built for the Arctic. And say what you want about the Swedes, they build vehicles that start in the cold. Ukrainian crews who spent entire careers begging Soviet engines to turn over in January have described the cold start reliability the way other men describe a religious experience. The crew never steps outside. The loading happens mechanically. The aiming runs through computers, and the firing is commanded from inside an armored cab with bulletproof glass by 3 or 4 soldiers. In a pinch, a single operator can run the entire system by himself, the gun and all 21 shells in its automated magazine, which it can empty in about 3 minutes if someone truly deserves it. Somewhere in Stockholm, an IKEA executive is nodding slowly, because of course Sweden built a howitzer one person can assemble into a firing solution. The only real surprise is that it didn't ship with an Allen key. The 45th Artillery Brigade received the first 8 of these in late 2023, and the job posting for a gun position reportedly listed moderate computer skills as a requirement. That's the qualification, not iron nerves, spreadsheet literacy. Ukraine put roughly 100 men through training for that first batch, and 70 of them were engineers, because this machine is less like a cannon and more like a server rack with anger management issues. That training pipeline is the hidden moat around this whole program. Certifying an Archer crew takes 4 to 6 weeks, noticeably longer than simpler Western guns, and that higher barrier filters who ends up behind the controls. By the time a Ukrainian crew goes operational, they've absorbed a Swedish instructor's worth of doctrine about never firing twice from the same spot, and about treating every extra second in position as a personal insult to the manufacturer. Russia isn't just hunting a fast gun, it's hunting a fast gun crewed by the most paranoid graduates in the Ukrainian artillery, and paranoia on this battlefield is a survival skill with a diploma. One of those artillerymen, a soldier named Yuri, told United 24 that a friend had warned him before the training trip. This is the best thing artillery ever invented. After his first missions, Yuri decided the friend had undersold it, and his explanation should keep every Russian gun crew within 60 kilometers awake at night. Soviet school doctrine, which Russia still runs on, aims at squares on a map and hammers the whole square until whatever lives inside it stops living. The Archer skips the square entirely and goes straight for the thing. One shot, maybe two. Yuri's crew calls it sniper artillery, and nobody there means it as a metaphor. There's a detail buried in that story worth savoring. Plenty of these Ukrainian crews graduated onto the Archer from the old Soviet D-20, a towed gun where loading a shell is a group fitness activity performed outdoors in drone weather while praying. In March 2024, drone operators found a cluster of Russian D-20s west of Kremina, and the 45th Brigade's Archer got the mission. Militarny didn't just report the strike afterward, they published the coordinates down to 6 decimal places, which is the OSINT equivalent of framing the receipt. The Archer conducted a short counter-battery mission, destroyed the guns, and displaced before Russian return fire had anything left to answer. 3 artillery pieces traded for a handful of shells and about 90 seconds of exposure. The men who once sweated over D-20s used their Swedish upgrade to delete Russia's. 2 months later came the strike that turned into pure poetry. A Russian Msta-S, their premier self-propelled howitzer, sat east of Chervonopopivka in a prepared position, carefully camouflaged, dug in exactly the way Russian doctrine teaches a gun to hide. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone found it anyway. The 45th Archer put a round into it, and Defense Express circulated the footage of the aftermath, burning. Consider the shape of that exchange for a second. Russia's best gun followed every rule in its own book and got executed by a machine that refuses to stay anywhere long enough to be found. The dug-in bear was sniped by the furniture van. Now, in fairness, Russia had gotten close, at least once on camera. In February 2024, near Kupiansk, a loitering munition finally caught an Archer, and Russian telegram channels celebrated like it was New Year's on Red Square. A confirmed kill of the Swedish wonder weapon, they announced. Then footage surfaced on the Dambiev channel showing the actual damage. The hit had landed on the automatic loading module, and analysts assessed the vehicle as repairable. Ukrainian sources expected the gun back on duty after a stint in the shop. So Russia's proudest moment in a 3-year hunt is a howitzer that took a sick day. You do have to admire the commitment though, because nearly every Archer kill Russia has announced has later turned out to be a gun that needed repairs rather than a funeral. That would be devastating news for Ukraine if the fleet weren't visibly still out there, ruining Russian artillery careers on a weekly basis. Russian military bloggers are nothing if not optimistic novelists. The economics of the hunt are their own quiet insult. Each Archer costs around $10 million, so Moscow's logic says spending $35,000 Lancets to kill one is a bargain. That logic works beautifully right up until the Lancets keep arriving at empty firing positions. Russia is paying real money, burning real reconnaissance hours, and diverting real strike assets to repeatedly assassinate a patch of dirt where a Swede-built truck was parked moments earlier. Multiply that across 2 years, and the Hun itself has become a Ukrainian weapon. Every drone circling an abandoned meadow is a drone not hunting something Ukraine actually lost. What makes the Archer genuinely cruel, though, isn't the gun alone. Sweden shipped it with a partner, the Arthur counter-battery radar, included in the same aid packages. Arthur watches for incoming Russian shells and back-calculates the launch point while the rounds are still in the air, feeding those coordinates directly into a firing solution. A Russian howitzer opens fire, and its own shells become the confession. Before that crew finishes its mission, an Archer somewhere has already received the address and posted the reply, and is currently driving somewhere else. The Russians invented an entire literary tradition about punishment arriving for your sins. They just never expected it to arrive within the same fire mission from Scandinavia with paperwork. Follow that effect downstream, and it compounds. A Russian gun crew that knows the reply arrives in minutes starts behaving differently, firing shorter missions than ordered, hesitating before the first round, while the battery commander double-checks the escape route instead of the target target list. None of that appears in any loss column. Yet spread that hesitation across an entire front, and Russia's famous artillery advantage produces less fire than the spreadsheet promises. The gun doesn't need to destroy the Russian army. It just needs to make the Russian army flinch several hundred times a day, and flinching, it turns out, scales. Meanwhile, the crews protecting archers have turned survival into a craft. On the southern front, they dig the guns into firing pits under Barracuda camouflage, a Swedish product naturally, because even their camo nets are an export success. Electronic warfare teams jam Russian drones before they can dive. And when everything else fails, there's the man in the meadow with the shotgun standing between a 30-ton machine and a Russian drone, personally offended by the buzzing. And almost nobody has clocked the twist. The Archer being hunted in 2026 is no longer the same machine that arrived in 2023, because Sweden has been upgrading it mid-war with Ukrainian combat data as the blueprint. When crews reported Russian drones sniffing out the heat signature of engine exhaust, BAE Systems engineered infrared suppressant exhaust cooling in response. Operational data revealed which components wear out fastest under combat tempo, and exactly those spares are now stockpiled in advance. Ukrainian requests even got the software rewritten to plug the gun into NATO's digital fires network. Russia is trying to solve a weapon that patches itself faster than any counter can be fielded. Every adaptation Moscow makes gets answered by an engineering team in Sweden, reading after-action reports over morning coffee. Even the British are part of this story, in the most British way possible. After London gave its AS-90 howitzers to Ukraine, the UK needed replacements immediately, and bought 14 Archers from Sweden in a deal negotiated in about 8 weeks, which for British defense procurement is roughly the speed of light. The upgrade sheet explains the urgency. The Archer doubles the AS-90's range, tops its speed by nearly 20 kilometers an hour, and does it all with a smaller crew. When an army that invented modern artillery looks at your howitzer and says, "We'll take it, no time for a committee," the marketing writes itself. The clearest evidence of how hard Ukraine's guns are working came out of Stockholm this January, and it's beautifully unglamorous. On January 8th, the Swedish Ministry of Defense confirmed 26 Archers delivered out of a planned 44, and in the same breath approved funding for replacement gun barrels. Barrels are consumables. They wear out from firing and only from firing. Sweden is buying new throats for these guns because Ukraine shoots them so relentlessly that the steel itself is surrendering before the Russians can even locate the rest of the vehicle. The enemy can't destroy this howitzer, so it has started destroying itself through sheer workload, which is honestly the most Swedish fate imaginable, quietly working yourself to death without ever once complaining. 18 more systems are scheduled through this year, and every new arrival makes the math uglier for Russian artillery, because this fleet doesn't fight as 26 separate weapons. It fights as the sharp end of one nervous system, where a reconnaissance drone hands a target to a radar, which hands a computed solution to whichever archer happens to be parked closest to the problem. Once mobile guns start outliving the weapons hunting them, pressure on a front line changes direction. Ukrainian infantry moves differently when it trusts that its fire support will still exist tomorrow. On July 1st of this year, Ukraine's Ministry of Defense published its own assessment of the system, and for a document written by a government press office, it reads suspiciously like a love letter, praising a gun it called ultra-fast and highly mobile, accurate out to 50 kilometers with standard rounds and 60 with Excalibur precision shells. Ministries don't usually gush about a weapon 2.5 years into operating it. The honeymoon phase is supposed to end. With this one, it apparently never did. So the hunt goes on. Russian drones climb every morning to scan tree lines for a Volvo-shaped heat source, and Lancet operators keep burning flight hours over Luhansk, searching for the gun that humiliated the Msta-S. The kill has been claimed on Telegram and confirmed approximately never. And somewhere down south, in a meadow Russia has flown over more times than anyone can count, Matilda's crew is loading the next mission while one man watches the sky with a shotgun and the patience of a nation that spent 200 years staying out of wars. Then showed up to this one with the most annoying howitzer on planet Earth. 20 seconds to arrive, 20 to fire, 20 to vanish. Russia gets whatever time is left over.